Hi everyone, welcome back to i-TUTOR IAS Academy, Tamil Nadu History NCERT series. Today we will discuss lesson 28, that is Russian Revolution of 1917 in world history. So in Russian Revolution, all of you know the time period is 1917 was a series of two distinct revolutions that dismantled the Tsarist autocracy and led to the rise of the Soviet Union. So it was fueled by centuries of oppression, a failing economy, and the catastrophic impact of World War. And so the February Revolution, the first phase was largely spontaneous uprising in Petrograd, triggered by severe food shortage and war weariness. Okay, and second one is the October Revolution, that is on November 1917. The second phase was an organized coup dictate led by the Vladimir Lenin and the Bolshevik Party. And aftermath and civil war was the revolution triggered a brutal Russian civil war between the Red Army, that is Bolshevik is the Red Army, and White Army is a loose coalition of anti-Bolshevik force, including monarchist and capitalist. Okay, so that is the Russian Revolution's background, and further we will discuss in this unit. And the Russian Revolution of 1970 was a very important political event of 20th century. For the first time, Karl Marx's idea of socialism and proletarian revolution became a reality. And Russia was a big and powerful country. Even Napoleon Bonaparte could not conquer Russia in 1812. However, during the beginning of 20th century, Russia was no longer a powerful country. During the time, Russia was ruled by Romanov dynasty, and Tsar Nicholas II ruled Russia at the time of the revolution. During his rule, Russia faced a serious domestic and international problem. Eventually, a series of political events led to the overthrow of the Tsarist rule by October Revolution of 1917. And Bolshevik party headed by Lenin led the revolution. Thus, Russia became USSR, that is Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, which lasted until its disintegration in 1991. And causes of the Russian Revolution, what are the causes? First one is political. In politically, the Tsar's rule was very weak, and Russia fought a war with Japan in 1904-05. Small Asian country, Japan defeated the mighty European country Russia in the Russo-Japanese War. This lowered the international and domestic prestige of Russia. And the Tsars believed in the divine right theory of kingship. And the Tsars Nicholas II was autocratic in his administration. The people had many grievances. The members of Semstovs and Dumas wanted liberal reform from the Tsars, but Tsars was not prepared to sanction any reform. And this is Tsars Nicholas II. Picture is Tsars Nicholas II, and this is Rasputin. Okay. And meantime, the working class of St. Petersburg went on strike, and the striking workers went on procession or to Tsar's place to present a petition to address their grievances. And they were led by Father Gapon. And when the workers reached Tsar's places, the guard fired on the unarmed crowd. This event is known as Bloody Sunday, as it took place on the Sunday and 22nd January 1905. Okay, so this is also known as 1905 Revolution, and this event was indeed a prelude to the October Revolution of 1917. So this is background that of the political cause, and the Tsarist court was under the evil influence of Raputin, and the Tazin was strongly under his influence, and at that time administration was affected by his influence. Hence the nobles poisoned Rasputins to death. And the economic causes of the Russian Revolution largely originated in the Russia's slightly outdated economy. Russia's agriculture was largely based on independent peasants, and they did not own modern machinery. Russian agriculture suffered from cold climate. Russia's agriculture season was only 4 to 6 months. The famine of 1891 had left many peasants in poverty, and the rapid industrialization of Russia also resulted in urban overcrowding and poor condition for urban industrial workers. And between 1890 and 1910, the population of the capitalist of St. Petersburg increased from 1,033,600 to sorry one one sorry 10 lakh 33,600 to uh, 19 lakh 500 600, with Moscow and experiencing similar growth. Okay, so in 1904 survey, it was found that average of 16 people shared each apartment in the St. Petersburg, with 6 people per room. There was also no running water, and piles of human waste were a threat to the health of the workers, and hence the workers in general were in a discontent situation. So this is the economy of the Russian Revolution. And rise of socialist party, and one of the most important event in the history of the socialist movement was the formation of 1864 of the International Working Men's Association, or the first international. And during the short period of its existence, the international exercised a tremendous influence on the workers movement in the Europe. So this is picture of Karl Marx. Okay, Karl Marx played an important role and to unite the socialist parties in various countries into the international organization. A congress was held in Paris on 14 July 1889, the centenary of the French Revolution of 1789. And the result of this Congress was what has come to be known as the Second International. And the formation of the Second International marked a new stage in the history of socialism. And on the 1st of May 1890, millions of workers all over Europe and America struck work and held massive demonstration. Since the 1st of May is observed as the International Working Class Day all over the world. And in Russia, when the workers' organization were set up, they were dominated by Marx's idea on socialism. In 1883, the Russian Social Democratic Party was formed by George Plekhanov, a follower of Marx. And this party, along with many other socialist groups, was united into the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party in 1898. However, the party was soon split over question of organization and policies. One group which was in a minority called the Menshevik, that is Russian in it means minority. The majority party was called Bolshevik. Okay, so this is the picture of George Plekhanov, and the leader of the Bolshevik was Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov. Okay, so and popularly known as Lenin. Okay, so this is Lenin, and he is regarded as one of the greatest leader of the socialist movement after Marx and Engels, and he devoted himself to the task of organizing the Bolshevik Party as an instrument of for bringing about revolution, and his name has become inseparable from the revolution of 1917. And the Russian socialists, including the Plekhanov and Lenin, and had played an important part in the Second International. And besides the Menshevik and Bolshevik parties, which were the political parties of the industrial workers, there was the Socialist Revolutionary Party, which voiced the demand of the peasantry. And World War One, the World War One, the Russia had a very adverse history of military failures. So even before the outbreak of the First World War, Russia had lost a war with Japan in 1904-05, and most of Russia's fleet was sunk by the Japanese in that war. While the Russian army enjoyed some initial success against Austria-Hungary in 1940, Russia's deficiencies, particularly regarding the equipment of its soldiers and the lack of advanced technology, that is aeroplane, telephone, proved the cause of all the Russia's failure. Russia's first major battle was a disaster, and in the 1914 Battle of Tannenberg, over 120,000 Russian troops were killed and wounded or captured, while Germany suffered only 20,000 casualties. And whatever the nationalist or patriotic support the Russian government had gained in the early stages of the war had been lost. And in 1950, Nicholas had taken direct command of the army. and the superior German army, better led, better trained, and better supplied, was effective against the ill-equipped Russian forces. And by the end of October 1916, Russia had lost between 1.6 and 1.8 million soldiers, with an additional 2 million prisoners of war and 1 million missing, and thus a total of nearly 5 million men lost. These were heavy losses, and mutinies began to occur in the Russian army. Soldiers went hungry and lacked shoe and munitions and even weapons. And Nicholas was blamed for all these crises. As this discontent grew, the state Duma issued a warning to Nicholas to grant constitutional form of government, and Nicholas ignored them. As a result, Russia's Stas's regime collapsed a few months later during the February Revolution of 1970. Okay, so that's about the World War One. Okay, and February Revolution. The February Revolution was the result of the political, economic, and social causes mentioned above. On the eve of the February Revolution, there was food shortage in the city, and people protested against the war. And as the protest grew, the various political reformists, both liberal and radical left, joined together against the TAS regime. In February, the protest in Petrograd turned violent as large number of city residents rioted and clashed with police and soldiers. And there was also total strike, and eventually the bulk of the soldiers garrisoned in the Petrograd joined the protesters. And on 12th March 1917, the capital city of Petersburg, renamed Petrograd and now Leningrad, fell into the hands of the revolutionaries. Soon the revolutionaries took Moscow. The task Nicholas II gave up his, his throne, and the first provisional government was formed on 15 March. And the fall of the TAS is known as the February Revolution because, according to the old Russian calendar, it occurred on 27 February 1917. And Kerensky's provisional government, the most important demand of the people were fourfold: peace, land to the tiller, control of industry by workers, and equal status of the non-Russian nationalities. And the provisional government, under the leadership of Kerensky, did not implement any of these demands and lost the support of the Pope, support of the people. And Lenin, who was in exile in Switzerland at the time of the February Revolution, returned to Russia in April. Lenin gave his April thesis, and this promised people what they wanted. Under his leadership, the Bolshevik Party put forward clear policies to end the war and transfer land to the peasant and advance the slogan "All power to the Soviet." And Lenin and his trusted associates Leon Trotsky led the October Revolution. And October Revolution of 1917, the unpopularity of the Kerensky's government led to its collapse on 7th November 1917, when a group of soldiers occupied the Winter Palace, and the seat of the Kerensky government. And all Russian Congress of Soviet met on the same day and assumed full political power. And this event, which took place on 7th November, is known as the October Revolution because of the corresponding date of the old Russian calendar, 25 October. And result, what are the result of the Russian Revolution? The Russian withdrew from the First World War. Later, formal peace was signed with Germany. Later, the estate of the landlord, the church, and the Tsar were confiscated and transferred to the peasants' societies to be allotted to peasant families to be cultivated without hired labor. And the control of industries was transferred to committees of the workers. By the middle of 1918, the banks and insurance companies industries, mines, water transport, and railway were nationalized. Foreign debts were refused and foreign investment were confiscated. A declaration of the right of people was issued, conferring the right of self-determination upon all nationalities. A new government called the Council of People's Commissars and headed by Lenin was founded. This first act of the new government began the era of socialism, and the first Soviet constitution was adopted on July 10, 1918, and it created the Russian Soviet Federate Socialist Republic, and later on December 30, 1922, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics came into being. However, soon the new Soviet state was involved in a civil war, and the officers of the army of the fallen Tsar organized an armed rebellion against the Soviet state. Troops of foreign powers, England, France, Japan, the United States, and others joined them, and war was fought till 1920. By this time, the Red Army of the new state was in control of almost all the land of the old Saracen Empire. Indeed, a revolutionary wave lasted until 1923. Okay, so this is all about Russian Revolution and its result and causes we discussed, and rise of Socialist Party we discussed. So this is all about Russian Revolution 1917. In between any doubts, you can contact us anytime. And for more videos and NCRT series, you just do like, share, and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much.